Hi, this is Chike Coleman, and welcome back to another edition of Real Reviews Cinematic Underground. As usual, I'm here with Chuck Koplinski, and we're going to be talking about the movies we've seen this week. So, Chuck, what have you had the pleasure or the disdain to watch this week?
The pleasure or disdain? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I saw this week, I saw The Vow, and I also saw This Means War.
Now, of those two, which one had you more emotionally invested and enjoying yourself?
That's a tough question.
I know it is.
Because they both sucked, so I'm not quite sure how to answer that. It would be measuring my level of disengagement in either of them.
I know, but isn't that why we go to the movies, to see whether we can be emotionally involved or invested?
Of course, that's exactly why, and that's what's wrong with most movies these days. Is that seems to be an afterthought, or people don't know really anymore. I think a lot of filmmakers don't know how to truly get a viewer emotionally invested. I think it takes a very mature filmmaker to be able to do that.
Agreed.
And also I think the other problem is that I don't know how many people you and I talk to, and when we try to talk about a serious film, they say, well, I don't go to the movies
I don't
to
do
think.
that. You know, that's not my thing.
Yeah, and so I think also then they don't go to the movies to feel either. So those are major problems.
It's pretty much an emotional departure when you really think about it. Mm-hmm.
I think that with any piece of art, whether it be a piece of sculpture, a photograph, a piece of music, a film, whatever, you've got to be able to be open to some sort of having an emotional response, whether it be anger, whether it be to have some empathy for whatever it is you're seeing, to be open-minded about things. And I think that's a big problem with our culture as a whole. There's a resistance to that.
I completely agree. I think that, like I've always said, that movies kind of inform us about where we've been and where we're going in society, but it's up to really the audience to find those. It's not even a treasure hunt to find those deeper moments. It's just about, how does this connect to your life?
Well, and it's also a willingness to try something new. Let's not go to the multiplex this weekend. Let's try something different.
Yeah.
That's I think the biggest obstacle, is to try to get people out of their comfort zone.
Live theater can also do the very same thing that we suggest movies can do.
Of course, yes.
And I think that if more live theater productions came to, in terms of came to the movies, came to movie screens, I recall, I believe it was last year, I went to see Company, starring Neil Patrick Harris and Christina Hendricks, and even though it was something beamed by satellite to the movie theater, it was still an engaging, emotional experience, and I found myself invested in Stephen Sondheim's work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with that, how did you like The Vow?
Oh, The Vow. I hate to use the term chick flick, because I think that's very dismissive. It's a label that people tend to put on a lot of movies that sometimes rise above labels. I go back to The Notebook an awful lot. A lot of people would have a knee-jerk reaction of calling that a chick flick.
Yeah.
And while it does have elements that belong to movies that are labeled as that, I think there is something more there.
I really believe that if we're talking about The Notebook, that film is more about relationships, how people truly choose to relate to each other rather than the romantic aspect behind the film.
Well, it also talked about the difficulties of a relationship. The key scene in that film for me was when the Ryan Gosling character tells her, this is a mistake. We're going to fight, we're going to have problems, but I can't be without you. Yeah. A lot of love stories or chick flicks don't deal with how it really is, how it isn't
how
all...
much it really hurts. I feel like Crazy tried to do something similar, but to little effect.
Well, they went a little overboard there, I think. And The Vow, of course, isn't touching on any of this, so I'm afraid I do have to use the phrase chick flick, because that is what this is. It's not about... even though it pretends to be about difficulties, we know where this is headed. Mm-hmm. It's all about tone, really.
Really, yeah. That's what I thought when I saw the trailer. It's like, the tone of this movie looks like it could do a lot to really inspire people in their own relationships, but whether it will do that or not is something entirely different.
Well, you know, and it's just, even though it's based on true events, I mean, it just is so hokey. You know, Rachel McAdams, looking as angelic as ever, you know, has this horrific car accident. She loses her memory, wiped out for 5 years, her last 5 years of memories. So, of course, she has no recognition of her hunky husband, played by Channing Tatum.
Does he do a good job? Because
they both do the best they can. You know, that's about all I can say. He is an interesting guy. I haven't made up my mind about him yet, whether he's a good actor or not. I think he's okay, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch him because I see him developing. He made a movie a couple years ago called Fighter that a lot of people didn't see. Kind of a low-budget thing, and that was the first time I became aware of him and thinking, you know, that this guy might have something.
So for an actor to be good, does that mean his acting has to have depth, or does it mean we just have to believe him?
Believe. I think we have to believe, and I think I think those two things go hand in hand. We have to believe. You've got to believe. You've got to convince me you're a real person for me to believe that situation, and having that depth goes hand in hand in accomplishing that. There was another movie he made last year called The Eagle that no one saw either, that I thought he did a good job in. And I just recently saw 21 Jump Street, which comes out in about a month. And I was thinking, this kid in a comedy, are you kidding me? He knocks it out of the park. So I think it's going to be interesting watching him develop over the years, because you can see him getting better. Yeah. The problem with him is going to be him being able to get projects in which he's going to be able to grow even further.
You know, I want to bring forth, since you bring up Channing Tatum, he's doing that new movie with Matthew McConaughey. I forget what it's called, but I believe it involves male strippers.
Is Matthew McConaughey in that?
I believe so.
See, I thought it was Alex Pettyfer.
Yeah, he is as well.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that film.
I am as well.
You know, because that's Steven Soderbergh, and Tatum was in his last film, Haywire,
and
as well.
And I thought he was the strongest link in that film out of all the male actors on screen. Even excluding Fassbender, you know, I didn't...
And you finally got to see it?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I thought Fassbender was charming, but I don't really believe he got much work to do. I believe the little personal aspects of his life, of his character, I believe his name was Paul, that they got into in terms of his life before he decided to try and take down Gina Carano, her character, Melanie, was it? Yeah.
Yes.
I believe that personal touch of trying to figure out who he was while they were on the mission was nice. We didn't get that same amount of depth with Channing Tatum, but surprisingly we didn't need it. I don't think.
Well, we had a few more scenes with him too. And we did see a bit of a connection, and he does redeem himself at the end. But then again, as far as Haywire is concerned, Fassbender's and a couple other guys in the movie, their sole function was to get beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean that's what I said in my review. Like, this movie is not about story. This movie is watching a woman just kick the ass of every single male lead that's in the movie, including Michael Douglas, but that, in essence, is a verbal beatdown.
Yeah. Let's see, where the heck were we on this incredibly tangential conversation?
we were talking about Channing Tatum.
Oh, right. Well, the male stripper thing that's coming out is based on his life.
Right. Yes.
Which really adds another dimension to the whole thing.
I was like, okay. Now,
but it makes sense.
Diablo Cody did the same thing with writing, you know?
Yeah. You know, when you go back, I believe Tatum broke in with these dance films.
Yes, Step Up.
You know, so it makes sense. Okay, it's not too big of a leap to think of him as a male stripper, because obviously he had some great moves in those films.
He has some build,
yeah,
and some grace within the dance.
Yeah. But you know, he's kind of out of his depth here in The Vow. He's trying. He's definitely trying. But this thing is doomed from the start, just again because of the tone. It's so sappy, and you may want me to believe that Rachel McAdams is not going to end up with him, but I don't believe it for a second, because you've basically telegraphed what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Two interesting things about the film that surprised me. Okay. I found myself not liking her at times. I really did. You know I was supposed to have sympathy for her for having her memory wiped out, but at the same time, it was like this guy is just doing everything he possibly can.
Yep.
And her resistance to
Did
her...
you want him to, or did you want her to throw him a bone?
Something. It didn't make any sense, despite her amnesia, that she would be so resistant to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second thing is, and this is just kind of silly, but I mean, if you're waking up from amnesia, or from a coma, you don't remember this guy, and this hunky guy says, "I'm your husband." Lots of times, women are just going to say, "Okay, sounds good to me." No argument, that's good.
I mean, here's the thing that I didn't see the film. I want to put this out to viewers. I did not see The Vow. Do I plan?
And you're a better person for it.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, and I'm humbled by it. I wanna figure out. Okay, let's say I'm Rachel McAdams' character, and I wake up and Channing Tatum is my husband.
Right.
The first thing that I'm going to ask is, what proof do you have?
Right.
She didn't go that route. She just said, "I don't believe you."
No. He does show her all the proof possible. And she still resists. And even he goes so far as to recreate some of their key dates.
Wow.
And so again, that was where my frustration was building for her. It was like, what more do you want? But then again, there are always those mysteries of the heart that you can never explain.
Does it raise the question, was she ever really in love with him to begin with, or? I know that's a really difficult one to put forward.
Not so much, but what it does raise the question about is how circumstances affect who you are. There's one key, the one thing that she can't figure out is that she comes from a very conservative home.
Right.
She's studying to be a lawyer. And then, but when we first see her, and the woman that Channing Tatum knows is that she's this artist, this free spirit, this person who is as far away from conservatism as you could possibly get. And so the big mystery is what happened to change her.
Is that resolved?
It's finally revealed what that key moment is, which then is the thing that makes her question everything and makes her more open to the fact that, maybe.
Now, was that moment rewarding for you when it came, or would you rather it come sooner?
It took a while to get there. I didn't mind it. It's a bit soap opera-y, but within the context of the film, it made sense.
Okay.
It made sense.
So what do you think of McGee's? And notice
first off, I hate him because he refers to himself as McGee. Okay, I hate him for that. Just want to get that off my chest.
We're not even going to get into why that is, because I agree with you, but I don't want to go into that direction. What was your opinion of This Means War?
I always thought, you ever read Mad Magazine?
Yes, it
and that
reminded
whole
me of
strip
Spy versus
It was
Spy.
exactly, that's what it should have been. Okay?
I agree.
Because I always thought Spy versus Spy could be a neat little movie if done correctly. And the middle half hour of This Means War is that. And in my opinion, that was the best part of the film. They enter into this agreement, these two spies, Chris Pine and Tom Hardy. They both meet Reese Witherspoon, who's inexplicably single.
And they meet her separately, as I hear.
On the same day, but under separate occasions. And they decide that they'll have a gentleman's agreement, and they will woo her separately and not interfere. They're just going to let her make up her own mind, let the chips fall where they may. Well, of course, they can't do that.
Right.
And in the second half hour, they start whipping out all the spy gadgets, the technology, the surveillance things.
And don't they use it as... don't they use the technology, don't they convince their boss, played by Angela Bassett, that it's a cover to find a terrorist of some kind?
No. They convince the guys who they have working under them, who do all the groundwork, that this is something more. But that, of course, gets brushed to the side, and poor Angela Bassett is wasted here. I think she's got 3 scenes. But when they start sabotaging each other's dates with all the gizmos, and when they start hearing things they shouldn't hear and seeing things they shouldn't see, the film really is quite fun. But it's that first half hour and the last half hour, the bookends of the film, that are just god-awful.
Okay, so for my one question for you, is Reese Witherspoon attractive?
Well, I don't know. That's a personal...
Is she attractive as a person in this film? And is she attractive physically in this film? There's a reason I go there.
Okay, well, again, that's a personal thing. I mean, I've never found her physically attractive, not movie star wise. I mean, and that's not to say I think she's ugly by any stretch, but you know, she's okay. As a person, she's very appealing in the film, so that is a plus.
Okay, the reason I asked that question is she is the linchpin that this film rests on because she's the object of affection.
Sure, yeah.
And I want to speak again and say I did not see this film, but what I did do was I talked to a critic via a audience webcam chat, and he told me about This Means War, and he told me how the film ends, which I will not spoil here.
It's okay.
But is it all right to? Can I spoil?
You know, I've often said that part of our job as critics is we suffer so other people don't have to. That's part of our job.
All right. So do you want to be the one?
Go for it. No.
Okay. From what I understand, the ending to this film, and I quote, is between the two men, and it's FDR and Tuck, correct? She realizes, okay, these two men obviously know each other, and I like them both immensely. But you know what? I don't know which one I'm going to choose. So here's how I'm going to decide it. And this is what grinds me to a halt when thinking about this film. I think it's a great idea. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have sex with them. And whichever person is better in bed, I will go with that person. That is categorically just beyond wrong. There is no words. There are no words that I can express how horrible that is for the person who's not the jackass in this scenario, which would be Tom Hardy's character of Tuck.
Well, first off, that's not how she makes her ultimate decision.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing. Okay. Secondly,
but it is a component, though.
It's a component of it, but secondly, let me just say this. For the entire history of film, for the entire history of relationships between men and women, behavior such as that when it's done by a man is seen as almost acceptable or cool or expected. So you cannot have this double standard of dismissing her or saying that she might be morally bankrupt by doing this.
If the situation were reversed and this was two lead women actresses, say Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
Okay.
I'm going that direction.
Yeah, who's the guy?
The guy would probably be Steve Carell.
Okay.
And if he said, you know what, I don't know which lady to choose. You both are fantastic. I enjoy both of your company immensely. I need to decide it through sex. I would be just as pissed. Like that's an awful way to treat a woman of a female.
But again, as we were talking, so many things depend on the tone you take.
So if you feel like if the film took the more comedic direction that I'm suggesting, would this have worked better?
Well, first off, this is a lighthearted film, This Means War. And it is seen not as such a serious moral flaw, but as the next logical step to solving this problem. So tone-wise, you know, we're not supposed to take it seriously or see her as a morally bankrupt person.
Okay.
You know, it's not presented in that way. And I think it's kind of a double standard to dismiss her for that. As I said, you know, men in films, or the image we have of men, good guys in films, has revolved around far worse things.
Agreed.
So you know, I mean, if we go back to even something like Crazy Stupid Love from last year, I mean, the Ryan Gosling character was betting everything in sight, and yet still somehow or another he was still presented as a sympathetic character,
right? As
someone who, wow, isn't he cool?
Okay.
So you know, that's kind of a gray area.
I see.
It's very touchy.
Speaking of which, did you like Chelsea Handler in this film?
Hate her. Hate her. Hate her. Hate her. Okay. I don't really. I've tried watching her show. I don't get it. And I may come off sexist here. Maybe it's a girl. Maybe it's a woman thing. And maybe, I think that a lot of her audience tends to be women. And I think the appeal for them is that she says things that they want to say but won't. She does things that they want to do but won't. So I think that there's a lot of living vicariously through her body personality. And this comes through in the film.
I agree completely with your analysis of her.
However, ironically, she's the person in the film who delivers the one key piece of information, the one glimmer of hope, when she finally tells the Reese Witherspoon character, you don't choose the guy that you like better. You choose the guy that you're going to be better with.
Wow.
And I was like, aha, there's the one grain of honesty in this entire disaster. And that is the thing that eventually leads her to making her decision.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Chesley, I just want to make sure this is clear as though there's no confusion. Hate her. Hate her.
Okay. So, did we talk about Safe House yet?
I don't think we did.
All right, let's dive into that, because that's a movie. Have you seen it, though?
I have seen it, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for reading my reviews.
Yeah. And in turn, thank you for reading mine.
No problem.
What did you think of Safe House?
Safe House is the kind of movie that depends or succeeds, I think, on the personality of the performers. Safe House doesn't show us anything new.
I agree completely.
I mean, there's nothing new under the sun here as far as espionage, thrillers, anything like that.
I think a word that I've been overusing, and correctly so, in most of my reviews revolving around action films, is the word, and it's actually two words, adrenaline shot. That's what these movies have become for action movies.
Yeah, and the movies like this are exercises. You know, it's like, we know what's going to happen. Let's see how well you can do it. Mm-hmm. Can you bring something new to this? Can you do this in an invigorating way that's going to make me pay attention? Or is this just going to be a rote exercise? And the director there, and I can't come up with his name right now, he was a Swedish director.
Right, correct.
I thought he brought a couple interesting things to it. He actually made a car chase exciting for once.
I felt like he stole from Ridley Scott.
There was an incredible amount of stolen things from Ridley and Tony Scott, which I mentioned in my review. The jittery camera.
Yeah.
The mixing up of visual styles within a certain sequence.
Yeah, the quick editing.
The quick editing, yeah. Oh, I'm with you there completely. Still, I thought the car chase was a nice little set piece. I thought that the chase over the slums, the roofs of the slums, were pretty good.
Yeah, that was nice.
You know, Denzel Washington is one of those guys
who can do anything.
He could read the phone book and it'd be interesting. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys you could watch in a crappy movie. Mm-hmm. He'll give a good performance even if the movie is garbage. Yeah. And so that's a big plus for this film.
I was shocked 3 times in this film. Can I tell you where?
Please do.
The first place I was shocked is the waterboarding scene.
Why did that shock you?
Number one, I just didn't expect it. I thought, well, this is going to really make people rethink our government. And then I thought, wait, no, we're watching a movie. That's not possible. Shock number 2 occurred basically when, he was going to get his new identity, so he could continue to travel. Mm-hmm. And those guys had found him out in that warehouse where that chase scene you're talking about is taking place. Mm-hmm. That was interesting to me. But the third and final thing that shocked me happened to be a flaw in the film. Mm-hmm. A key moment in the film. For those of you who have seen Safe House, you'll know exactly the scene I'm talking about. At this point, we have Ryan Reynolds' character, Matt Weston, and he is traveling. He's been injured. He's been shot, and he's laying in a bed, and Denzel Washington comes back at the last minute and saves him. Mm-hmm. As they prepare to leave, Denzel Washington walks outside of the door of the room where Matt Weston's being kept in, and he gets shot. Ask me why that shocked me.
Why did that shock you?
Because he'd been looking both ways the entire movie. What the heck? If you're a CIA analyst or an agent, and you have been on the run for a decade plus, you're telling me that you're not going to look both ways out of a doorway after you seemingly destroyed the last threat to see whether it's safe to leave? Really? Honestly. Tell me that wasn't a problem for you.
Until you mentioned it, I hadn't even thought of it, to tell you the truth.
Tell me that wasn't a problem for you. Did you see that?
Again, it didn't even occur to me until you just mentioned it.
He didn't look both ways. He didn't look behind himself. He just said, "Let's go."
Maybe he was tired.
I don't care.
If I remember correctly, he had been put through the ringer at this point as well.
He had been put through the ringer at this point as well.
You can't forgive. Fatigue isn't a factor.
But when you're making a consistent story, you don't skip that. You don't make a man who's been looking over his shoulder the entire movie stop looking over his shoulder. Did Jason Bourne ever stop looking over his shoulder? Did he ever stop trying to be one step ahead of the enemy during those suspense films? That's what this film was basically framed around, a Bourne identity type thing, except in this case, the Bourne character, Denzel Washington's character, had all the information he needed to take down whoever he needed to take down. But in any of those suspense films that we've seen in the last, 3 to 5 years, did the character who has been wronged so much by the government or by an organization or agency, did they ever really stop looking over their shoulder? Just answer me that.
I guess not.
Because that's the one thing that Denzel Washington did. And I thought that that's the major flaw in the film. Not only, I'm not upset that Denzel Washington died. I would have been fine with, okay, he's looked both ways. He goes out that last doorway and he's walking with Weston, and then he gets shot. I would be fine with that. Because it's like, okay, at least he got him out, and, Weston can take care of the other guy and move on. And you can still have that same type of scene that they had towards the end of the movie.
Well, see, now I have to go back and watch the last 10 minutes. 10 or 15 minutes.
Which brings me, I enjoyed the film up until that point, because to me that was the fatal flaw. Why would you not look both ways?
I don't know. I'm going to go back and watch that last 15 minutes and try and get you an answer.
And okay, here's the other thing that I want to talk to you about, which is something you actually sent me.
Okay.
Which was, you sent me an article this week about the idea of rewatching a film.
Yeah, it was very interesting, I thought.
What do you think the merits of that are? Because I have my own opinions. I agree with most of what the authors put forth, but I want your opinions. What's the reward you get from rewatching a film?
Well, it depends on the film.
It really does.
That's the whole key. I mean, you don't ever have to rewatch Porky's.
No.
You don't ever have to rewatch Meatballs. You don't. One time through, you've probably gotten everything that you're going to get out of it. Inception. You got to watch that a few times.
At least 3.
Dark
Knight, you got to watch at least twice.
Yeah, it's all about how much.
How much
which is within the film.
Out?
Well, how much the filmmaker brings to it as far as intelligence is concerned, as far as skill is concerned. Because film is such you have so many different elements going on. I think the one movie, and the reason I sent it to you was because I know you were a great admirer of Shame. How he was talking about how you watch it the first time, you get sucked into the story. Mm-hmm. Then you watch it the second time, and he was watching the clothing. And how the clothing, as it changed, was reflective of the character.
And their moods.
So smart filmmakers that pay attention to all those elements in their films and their movies are worth rewatching. So that's really the answer. But also the other answer is, and I try to tell my kids this, I also teach, and I teach certain books every year. Mm-hmm. We read of Mice and Men every year. We read Animal Farm every year. And they say, well, don't you ever get bored with that?
No. There's always hidden depth. I remember the first time I read in 1984, and I thought, okay, I'm following this one character as he's moving through this kind of dystopian world where Big Brother's always watching. This is compelling stuff. And it's like, there's so many other different layers you can get through that one reading of George Orwell's novel.
But it's not just the book and it's not just the movie. It's you.
Yeah, it's what you see.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is you change. There are movies and books that you read when you're 20 that when you go back and you read them or watch them when you're 35, because you've changed, because things have happened to you, and you now have a new perspective, you can get other things out of those good pieces of literature and those good films that you wouldn't be able to feel before. I remember when I watched The Graduate as a teenager, I thought it was hilarious. Mm-hmm. This is a funny movie. And then I got older and I was like, my God, this is incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
You change. And that's one of the other reasons you go back and you watch films again or you read books again, because of that new perspective you're going to bring to whatever it is.
I think that you've touched upon a lot of the things that I was actually thinking. I was coming from that whole you change angle, but I phrased it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to say that the idea is that I can sit and watch Home Alone 2 Lost in New York 12,000 times, and I'm always going to get something different from it, whether it be the slapstick comedy of Marv and Harry, whether it be the isolation and loneliness you start to see Kevin slowly, delve into throughout, the first half of the film, and even in some points the latter half of the film. And then you get the concern of the parents. You can dig into all those little small sections. Or my personal favorite example, and I've been using this one a lot, is Mrs. Doubtfire. The first time you see it, it's a comedy, right? You laugh.
I guess so.
You laugh. You think it's great because oh, this man is playing this woman and he's doing it to see his kids. Great, hilarious little hijinks he gets into, especially with the face mask pie that he kind of does throughout I want to say the first 40 minutes of the film that happens. But then I'm in my 20s and I watch it again. And I'm like, this is the most frank discussion on divorce that a child could possibly understand. And it's sobering and sad and depressing, but you really begin to feel for Daniel Hillard as a character when you're watching Mrs. Doubtfire. And you're watching how much he's struggling to make it fun for his kids, but also the heartbreak of the kids not having their father around. But in reality, they are having him around, they just don't know it. There's so much depth to that for a kid's film, for it being a kid's film, for it being a comedy. I don't know. What's your opinion? I mean, you've probably seen Mrs. Doubtfire a couple times.
Once.
Oh, only once?
Only once. Once was enough.
I take it you did not.
Who was the wife there? Was it Sally Field?
Yes, it is.
And then what? Pierce Brosnan is the guy.
Correct.
Yeah,
Stu.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I take it you didn't like.
I see where you're coming from.
Okay. As long as that makes sense.
I see where you're coming from.
That tells me already that you probably don't enjoy the film. But
no, not really.
I can understand that. I think it's the deal with Robin Williams being over-exaggerated for most of the film that would probably grate on you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other films that you want to talk about? I mean, there's so many other films. We only have such a limited space of time.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any time left, and really there's really not much else to talk about now. There's some things coming up, of course. There always is.
I do want to mention one film, and it's a film that I don't think either of us have seen yet.
Mysteries of Lisbon.
No, well, that too. No, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
I will be going either today or tomorrow.
I would love to go with you if you're going to go, because I've heard numerous opinions on this film already. And it's not really colored by perception, because I haven't seen Ghost Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And you say I should see Ghost Rider because it's a hoot.
And that's how you have to go into this film. I'm prepared to sit back and hopefully enjoy a guilty pleasure. That's all I'm looking for here. And my kids are excited about it. It's just so silly, yet it's so cool at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's 95 minutes. How bad can it be? So we will see.
Maybe as bad as This Means War, maybe as bad as Skyline. Did you actually...
There's no way it could be as bad as This Means War, because at least you have the pleasure of watching Nicolas Cage overact.
This is true. I want to ask you, since we're speaking about horrible films for a second, did you see Skyline?
I did not.
Did not?
No.
Okay.
I was able to get by that without seeing it, and I had a feeling that it was not something that I would have missed.
You completely dodged a bullet,
yes.
Sir. I do want to mention that in the coming weeks, you and I are going to have to watch Tyrannosaur at some point.
We'll have to carve out some time to do that.
Tyrannosaur is going to be a film that I want to review with you here on the Cinematic Underground in the coming weeks. And I'm really curious to know what you think of Albert Nobbs' because I don't believe we discussed that either.
We have not. We have not.
And did you finish that?
I've never seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I will get to it, though.
Haven't seen it yet? Okay.
Yeah, Glenn Close doing Robin Williams, I got to psych myself up for that.
Yeah. I had to give myself a shot of penicillin before I saw that.
There we go. Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, I know. So until next time, I'm Chike Coleman, and this has been another edition of Real Reviews Cinematic Underground. We'll see you next time.